make you laugh.
Hi guys, welcome back to Paradise. I'm your host, Sean O'Donovan, and I will be running this session. Last on Advantage in Paradise.
My name's Alex, and I'm checking.
And he does such a great job of letting Sean know when we're starting up.
We're very professional.
Well, you guys were talking, I didn't want to interrupt, and I was like,
we use that very professional intro as cover for how unprofessional we really are.
Yes.
All I want to do is roll real dice. Nobody will let me.
All I want
And
for
I
Christmas.
said, Shannon and I said, is if we get to some combat maybe tonight, then yeah, sure, you can roll real dice. You should accept what I'm offering instead of...
What happened last week, Sean?
All right, folks. Last we left off.
Oh,
last we met.
off. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. You know what's
You say
funny
it
is
every time.
Oh, here?
I have last we met written down, but I said last we left off. All right. Last we left off on the 26th. Well, we ended on the 26th afternoon of Arwood Gloam. On a Tears Dog. A Tuesday. The Wayward Five made their final arrangements in the city of Kopoltrostva. Using their reward, our heroes made some upgrades to their equipment. Sarathil, Talray, and Timber visited the Seer's Sanctum, a magic shop in the Amaranthine Corridor. They met Azurf Neblin there, Shindal Adamant Lifter, and his warforged assistant, Telza. The curious scientist said that he knew of Wizwick and his family, and gave his condolences for the snuffing of such a bright light. And then proceeded to sell you marked up magic goods. Although Timber is currently under the illusion that he got away with spending significantly less on a magic item, and who knows, there might be someone after you in the long run. But he definitely got a $15,000 magic item for 1,500 gold pieces. But anyway,
And that was Alex messing up, or not hearing Sean properly,
Yeah.
and then playing it off as I gave him 1,500. Because that's what I deducted from my gold. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Well, this Warforged also was kind of a little scatterbrained, so it made sense in the moment. So I let it happen.
All right.
But we'll see where it lands you, and we'll see if that candle works.
Fair. Very fair.
Elsewhere, Kiran began the work to inform other allies about the next steps. He let the Ettins Venhen know of the Dwergar's plan to attack the Elder Brain. The Yetin let him know that they would gather their forces and attack the area known as the Kiln to hit the Mind Flayers on two fronts while the Dwergar took care of the Elder Brain. Kiran then sent word to Fizri, Wizwick's sister, to let her know of her brother's passing and the timeline for their arrival in Smoothhold. Finally, he used legend lore to learn more about this Illithid hive. He learned a bit about how the Elder Brain controls the hive and the life cycle of a Mind Flayer colony. Furthermore, he saw a vision of the Harbinger, great enemy, adopting the weakened Elder Brain when it was at its weakest. With his heart heavy with these insights, he decided to take a walk to find Scarlet. He found her working out the pain and stress of her current predicament at the forge. He apologized for scolding her the previous night, but let her know that he understands the desire to reach out to her lost brother. But the risks are too great without proper precautions, the Crimson Court still vying for Scarlet's mind. She expressed that it wasn't worth the risk. She couldn't get through to Reese. Kiran encouraged her to not give up on him, but also to prepare the boy she knew to be gone. The next day, the party gathered with Strana. With a few last spells cast to help the Dwergar with their efforts, they moved forth into the northern hinterlands. But before that, because I missed something in this recap, after Kiran and Scarlet's heart-to-heart, they worked together with Capricious, the Forge Cleric of the Temple Forge to Fearsol, to forge a truly great weapon. They infused it with Fearsol's magic and Ilyuvanya's magic, both light of the Twilight Moon and fires of Fearsol's Forge. to mimic a legendary weapon that Capricious had heard of, known as Lanchalas. Now Scarlet has a fancy new dagger to add to her collection. But as I said, the party gathered with Stronach and began moving into the northern Unterlands of the Underdark. Along the way, she recounted tales of all the strange places she had found in these northern parts as they passed drowned caverns, fungal forests, and other oddities. Talray and Stronach's guidance protected the party, as Timber's shadow magic kept them hidden from dangerous cavern dragons and other threats. But alas, as they approached their destination, Kiran sent a final message to Fizri to meet and help them gain entrance into Smoothhold so they could bring Wizwick's fallen body to its home and final resting place. She agreed, though when they came upon the ditch town, Zirfneblin traps were immediately triggered, paralyzing Sarathil temporarily, or until Fizri was able to give him a potion. But luckily, Fizri was there to welcome the Wayward Five, and as she approached, the illusions fell of this destitute Zirfneblin town abandoned into a warm, beautiful village full of life. But this life contrasted with the broken body of her brother as she broke down at his corpse, held by Noldo and Golem. This is where we left off. Fizri is collecting herself, kind of as everyone gave her a quiet moment there. There are the Zirfneblin that are now, they've kind of are returning to their day-to-day as they take their own moment of silence for Wizwick. But you see them very quickly upping the traps, moving them back to their appropriate place. You see one starts to come forward and begin to reapparate the illusions ahead of the party. But in this moment, what would you like to do?
I mean, Talray would probably, kind of just, understand that everybody's feeling a little down and try and, change the subject maybe, or, lighten things up by, possibly saying, hi, can I, could you show us around a little bit, or is that too much to ask? Maybe we can, you could tell us a little bit about, where Wizwick grew up, and maybe you could help us along our way. We're really here under. We just figured that he would want to be laid to rest here, so we won't be here very long. We'll stay as much as your hospitality wants to give us, and then we'll be on our way. We've got big important questing to do, so.
You see Fizri kind of comes back from, she steps back from Wizwick's body, and Naldo kind of lifts it back up and stands before her. She seems to ignore you for a moment as she kind of marvels at Noldo before her, staring up into the amber eyes and the amber gem in his chest, before wiping a tear away and turning back to each of you. Well, I got you an audience or a meeting with the Trap Master and Head Guardian. You'll have to convince him to let you in. Sure, I'll be able to take Wizwick in. Sure, whatever this creature is. But to a lot of you are outsiders. I can't approve that. I can't get you in. I have to talk to the Trap Master.
Of course, Fizz. We thank you for everything you've done so far.
Is there some sort of trick to the trap master? Like we have to go through a bunch of traps to get to him?
Well, if you didn't contact me, then yes, that very much so is what you would have had to do.
Sarathil's the one that got shot, right?
Yeah, like some of you got like some darts in you, but he's the one who got the most, and he succumbed to the.
I got the
paralysis.
120 cc's of poison.
Yeah.
Do we give it an antidote? I forget at the end of the session.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes,
after
yeah,
they called
Fizz
off,
gave
they,
it.
Yeah, okay,
I'm
that's
out
what I
of it
thought.
now. I'm out of
Okay.
it.
Just making sure.
Although I'm just still kind of like cracking like my joints because they're a little stiff.
Okay.
Woodrow is not a very, let's just say he's a frustrating man. So I don't know the best way to convince him. He delights in traps and tricks, but his main heart is in defense of Smoothhold's true location.
Of course. Now, we don't necessarily need to gain access to Smoothhold, do we? We simply wish to bring Wizwick to his final resting place until, well, I'll tell you more on that, but to reach the surface, to reach Elysia, do we need to go through Smoothhold, or can we access it from another area?
There are other paths to the surface. You don't need to go through Smoothhold to get above. You just need to, it would be easier, but there are plenty of paths to the surface. But
Now, sorry, could you remind me, when was the last time your people in the Dwergar of the Gloom Lords, how are relations with you? We have one of the representatives here, and Colonel gestured towards Strani. We had come hoping to seek some aid for them as well.
well, that could be very helpful. Gloamlord has been into Smoothhold. Not all of Smoothhold. But he's respected amongst the people here for his love of life. But he's not seen the whole of the boroughs. Different regions, but perhaps with... And she kind of like looks around you and to Strani, who's kind of just stoically listening. Perhaps with the direct representative, we can at least get you in to, temporarily.
We've traveled all this way to bring him home. I would hope that we'd be allowed to say goodbye.
We would absolutely be allowed to say goodbye. But it doesn't mean that you'll say goodbye inside Smoothhold. It's been centuries that we've kept this place secret and hidden.
Is your uncle Owick here? I assume he's your uncle as well.
And she does kind of like, she's been serious at this point. She does kind of laugh a little bit at that. Bilgru told you more than I thought he would have.
He was quite the talker.
He trusted us.
We were
Much to
friends.
the chagrin of our father. But yes, Uncle Owick is here.
So, do you mind me have a means of maybe this is going to sound ridiculous, but I've seen it done before. He might have some magics to bring Wizwick back.
The Zertnebelin are not very well known for that kind of magic. Illusions and tricks.
Looking at Kieran, it was worth a shot.
Well,
Uncle Owick is a strange one, though. But he's pretty up there when it comes to his age. She kind of looks, for a second, she looks at you, Sarathil and Kiran, and goes, no offense.
None taken.
I know it's quite obvious.
As I was saying, there was much that surrounded the departure of your brother. As he passed from this world to the next, he reached out through this one here, Kiran says, patting his armor. Noldo. His arcane core, his golem, Noldo, named after your old deity, Noldogra. Wizwick spoke to me, us, and said he had something he needed to do, but he would return. I don't know in what form, what capacity that will be in. It sounded as if he was joining the collective of Noldogra. Find or do something.
And if anyone knows anything about that, it would be Uncle Oic. Wizwick used to talk about a lot of those things.
Is there any way we can get an audience with him?
We'll have to get past Woodrow first. And you see for a moment, like, as all this conversation's happening, then suddenly, like, Noldo kind of, like, stands upright. And, like, that familiar scan that he does shoots out. And you see he kind of steps forward towards Fizri. And just says, Fizri, Anbi, Arwen, Yelk, Ploperus, Darius, Netherwork. You need to get your brother home. We are wasting time. And she's kind of like taken aback by this, and just like generally like this golem coming forth, kind of with this strange voice. Sorry, 1 second. My headphones are freaking out.
Guys, yeah, we've been following this golem, you know, getting your friend home, and I understand all that, but, like, what happens to the golem afterwards? Is it supposed to follow you all around? Because, I mean, if you don't want to leave your golem behind, I'd understand.
Its master
us wanting to go in, but
its master is the one he is carrying.
I promised Huron Isilistane to help if you helped me bring Wizwick home. I will do that duty to Master Netherrock's friends.
Whatever you're comfortable with, Noel. You can always find our own way. Says gently patting him up.
All right, well, let's go.
Fantastic.
And you see, as Fizri starts to lead you, Noldo follows her immediately before you all could walk. And Noldo, like, almost instinctually holds an arm down for Fizri to climb on top of it. And she kind of doesn't understand at first, but then acquiesces and climbs up onto his shoulder and leads the way. All right. All right, so it's not very long of a journey, but you do find yourselves entering into a space that gets a little bit more cramped for those of you who are taller. And you see, like, it's very much like a there's several different paths, and they go up and down. It's almost honeycomb-esque as you're moving through this general area of Smoothhold. But eventually you get to a spot where she hops off, and you see she actually holds up a device that you can't really quite see, and suddenly you see, kind of stepping out of an invisible barrier, you see another deep gnome. He's about same size as Wizwick was. He has jet black hair, which is a little different than other deep gnomes that you've seen. And he has a lighter gray skin. His facial hair is kind of mutton chops that connect to a mustache, that come out kind of quite far on the sides. There are streaks of silver in his hair. Classic deep red eyes, or a little darker than the typical deep gnome's amber eyes. He is kind of like smirking. He's a little lether than most deep gnomes. Deep gnomes, you typically, what you've seen so far, or gnomes in general, tend to be a bit more stocky in certain ways. So he's actually probably a little bit taller than Wizwick was, realistically. But he has several pouches all over him. Like bandoliers of sacks and different pouches, and on his sides, all sorts of different pouches. He doesn't seem to have any weapons on him, although you do notice a wand at his waist. And he comes up, and as he does, he immediately kind of like holds his arms out to Pedri, and immediately goes, "Truly terrible loss, Pedri Netherwork. When you gave word of this, I can only imagine what your family is feeling right now. One of the first of the deep gnomes to leave the Underdark in so many years. You go so far." And he kind of holds his arms out to give her a hug, and there's a moment where they hug, and you can see kind of coming out of the wall doesn't go away, but two other deep gnomes come out to join them. They seem like they are they're not like in like plate armor and heavily armored. They're more like rogues in the way that they're armored and weaponed. They have daggers, they have small crossbows, they have maneuverable leather armor. And several just like small weapons on them. Behind those two deep gnomes come two giant spiders flanking them that are about the size of, they're not like the size of horses, but they're like the size of, one might say, Jasper, Wizwick's old donkey. When you can see they have like, as best as you can tell, like riding saddles on them and different rigging for mounts. And she looks to him and says, "Thank you, Woodrow. These are the adventurers, Wizwick's friends. They understand the situation of Smoothhold. They know how important this was to Wizwick to keep this place secret. They wish at least partial entrance to say their goodbyes and speak with our family." And you see Woodrow kind of like peeks around Pedri, and that like kind of sincere, sympathetic face kind of vanishes to a more stone face, and then kind of like a weird little smirk as he looks, and then he steps around her, and the two step up. The two flank guards flanking him step up with him, and the spiders kind of. One of them, you see one of the guards just kind of like grabs onto like the reins of the spider and kind of just like hops onto its back, and it crawls up onto the ceiling. It definitely the cave's gotten bigger in this space. So like Sarathil, like this like spider is just like hanging above you. You could just see a deep gnome's head like looking down at you like this, with just kind of like these red eyes that are in the dark of the deep gnome, and then like the red eyes of the spider.
Sarathil's got his hand like on his spell book, like just like tightening it, just like he wants to cast something, but he's really just like going through mental gymnastics to not.
Yeah, right. But Woodrow kind of steps forward, and he just looks to each of you and says, "Which one of you surface dwellers is the leader?"
Well, we don't really believe in leaders around here.
It's Kieran. It's him.
It's Kieran.
Oh. Elysian.
It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Trap Master Woodrow, is it?
That's right.
Kieran gives him a deep bow.
He'll he doesn't bow, he just kind of gives you a quick, like, a nod like this. Says, Woodrow, Muldrow, Ilri, Gidri, Silky, Gamut. Pleasure to meet you.
Kieran Iflastane, the pleasure is mine.
How long did you know Wizwick Netherwork?
Me and Wizwick, Bilgru,
Farlight,
Farlight,
Pedri.
Jedri, Pedri,
Yellen.
Netherrock,
Yellen.
Jedri.
Jedri, Pedri,
Pedri.
Netherrock.
There you go.
Go back, almost a year now. I met him in Theris Moor. I had just received some important news, and who do I find upon exiting the temple then? This curious little deep gnome that said he could control the weaves of magic. Seems like so long ago, though.
Sweet story.
Thank you.
It was very disappointing to a lot of us. Wizwick left. Certainly for his father and family. How do I know that you, let's put it this way. How did Wizwick...
What was that?
How did Wizwick die?
We just entered the Underdark. Came upon a frontier hive colony of mind flayers. One of their members came out, cast an awful product spell, drained the life from Wizwick's body. I got to him in time to perform magics of my goddess Iluvania, but he said he had business to attend to with Noldagra, your old god.
I, never heard of no Noldagra.
Have you heard the stories of your people from before? And Kieran will gesture towards Noldo and their 14 cores.
They'll kind of look up at Noldo, and then you see like the other guard kind of hops on the spider that kind of crawls around you all and is now behind you. Sarathil, you would notice the spider guard above is kind of like slowly coming down on a web above you.
I'm literally just locked on both of them constantly.
That sounds like a real interesting story, and there are legends of an old god. We don't give much mind to them. Not that interesting or valuable. I know that Fizri's uncle here was very interested in them, and therefore the boy. I know he was fond of him. This is an interesting and very convenient story. And do you want to do in Smoothhold?
Well, we simply wish to, one, say our goodbyes to Wizwick in whatever form your people see fit. He was a friend of ours, and we wish to join to you all in saying goodbye. From there, we would hope a moment with his uncle Owen, if only to see the legend himself. Wizwick spoke very highly of his uncle.
He's a bit of a
Since he is
kook.
leaving. They say
So
the
was
best of them
Wizwick,
are.
so...
I was going to say the same thing.
But he was our
And where are
kook.
you off to next?
We are off to my
Save
homelands of Elysia. The Sinvosi Peaks, to be precise. We understand that one of the safest, quickest ways is through Smoothhold. And if you would allow us this passage, we would greatly appreciate it.
And you pass through Mind Flayer territory?
Well, would you like the whole story or the abridged version?
Just want to know the answer to my question.
We fought our way through the Glomadum Gap, Kolput Ratsvga, where we broke the Mind Flayer's siege of that dwarven fortress, met with the Gloom Lord Garlemane himself, trapped their Elder Brain in the pits beneath the fortress, and left them, well, plainer ally of Fearsol himself. We've spoken with the Yetten tribes further south, gotten their assistance in aiding the fight against the Mind Flayer, the Illicid curse. We've passed through Drow territory as well, and saw those worshippers of the Dark God. And then made our way here. Not necessarily in that order, but
Oh, and
Some
you
of us
see,
nearly died. I just said that some of us nearly died. Okay.
and Strani would step forward when you mentioned the Gloam Lord. Did you have? Sorry, I think I cut you off there, Shannon. Did you have more?
It's okay. No, I just was a side comment saying, just being snarky. Just some of us nearly died.
Oh, okay, I thought you said more than that. And you see, he would like look at you though when you say that comment, like, and give you kind of like these eyes of like, I don't care. You can really easily read that, like, essentially saying like, I don't care about any of you except for Wizwick.
Stare right back.
Strani would come up and say, they are telling the truth. I am a captain of the Gloomstalkers. I am in service directly to the Gloomlord, Garlemane. I was sent here to escort them here for their friend. I know how much your council loves the Gloomlord. I know that they don't really like the Dwergar in general. Not personal, I understand. You're trying to protect your home. They tell the truth, and they are all worthy of the respect of you and your peers. And it kind of like interrupts that last line of hers, and it just says, why do I know that you're not all coming here with some kind of illithid threat following you? Or some kind of infiltration from the illithids within you?
I admit your paranoia is well placed, friend. The Mind Flayers burrow in and control from the inside. Is there any way we can prove to you our intents are pure within your settlement?
And you see he kind of like takes a step back and looks at you all again.
He made this for me.
Okay. It's pretty. And I do appreciate you bringing the boy back. Yeah.
Oh, nothing. I just this doesn't help me at all. I guess for convincing, I was gonna show you some mind flare blood, but you know.
What are you? And you see Fizri hits him on the arm. And it's just, Throw. Rude.
Oh, he's a demon. An ancient Fey god possesses. Excuse me, sorry.
Wait, are you like a bat person?
No, he's wolf. He's like a lycanthrope. But instead of the curse, it's more.
I'm sorry, I'm a
You-
little confused here. Do you want to hear our last stories, or like
Right.
we've already told you why we're here? Like this should just be an easy yes or no question, you know? I don't think this is a job interview or anything like that. We just want to pay our respects and go.
I could tell you if you let us in. I'll tell you all about
Tolerate,
it.
give me a persuasion roll.
Okay, if you say so. Oh, okay. 15 minus 1 is 14.
Okay. All right, not bad.
For -1, not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad at all for -1. You see he steps back and says, "You're right. Give me a moment." And he steps back in through that invisible barrier and disappears the rock.
When he fades away, I'm gonna go to Kieran and say, "Buddy, I know you're really good at, trying to be inspirational and stuff like that, and I really admire that for you and the lack and stuff. But when people ask you like what you've been doing lately, you don't want to give them the whole story of like everybody that you've ever talked to, because they'll lose interest. You know what I mean? Like they don't care about the mind flayers and the ettins and the droughts and the whatnots and the who whatses.
I thought that maybe, the more that I explained to him the good we've been doing in the Underdark, the more likely he would see our presence as a boon instead of a bane.
Yeah, but I mean, you could just tell our Drogar friend over there that, like, I'm sure that her little chiming in spoke much more volumes than you rambling on.
Yes,
You were just losing me a little there.
You see Fizri kind of like looks at you and kind of goes like this.
I apologize. I can be a bit long-winded at times. You are correct. I'll take this note. His journal and writes down, "Be more brief."
Well, when you're talking to someone like Woodrow, who does like to mess with people, that's why he's the trap master. It's good to be direct and simple.
I thought it was fairly direct. Simple, that's a different story. Is anything in life really that simple?
Okay, Kira.
Cosmic.
Well, you just have to evade his kind of prodding and poking, and he was trying to get you to ramble on so that he could find a reason to say no.
That's fair. That's more than fair. Wait. Rather rude.
Well, you don't keep your homeland secret for 200 years without being a little rude. And moving around a lot.
Are those spider guards still above us and hanging out?
Oh yeah, they're still there.
Are you okay, Sarathil?
Yeah. Yep.
It's like the spider's definitely not like...
Just keep an eye on them.
The behavior of the spider is not necessarily like in like a threatening mode, but just spiders are threatening looking, as it just kind of is hanging above Sarathil.
Sarathil was terrified of spiders. One of his fears is being ingested by a giant spider.
Okay. In a few moments, he will come back, and he looks at you all and he says, so, judging by your demeanor, the absolute, just shitload of items all over you and weapons and armor, I think we can work something out to allow you, under the protection of Fizri and her family, temporarily, to enter at least the portion of Smoothhold where their family lives.
Could you
need to...
Sorry.
You will need to turn over your weapons, any magic items on you, which will be returned to you when you are safely outside of Smooth. And also, you will have to undergo a search for any infections from the illicit threat.
Of course. Now, I will say we are more than happy to oblige with all of this, correct, friends? Kieran is looking at the group like...
I don't look happy.
Will, yeah, will the spiders stay?
Are you okay? Are you afraid of spiders?
I don't like spiders at all, and I've heard stories but never seen ones quite this large.
How do you feel about bats?
Fine, that's a
How
fine.
do you feel about lizards?
Also fine. It's just
All right.
they're just the arachnids, just general arachnophobia. Yeah,
I recommend you keep your eyes closed when we move through the main thoroughfares.
Okay, all right.
You see he almost manifesting an illusion in his hand that's not there. You see this little spectral bell appears in his hands and he just sort of rings. And you don't hear anything. Like, none of you hear anything. You do see Naldo kind of cocks his head, like as if he heard the ring. And Fizri clearly hears it. And you see the two spider guards leave. And another Sphere of Nebulin comes forward with just a big box in his hands. And he kind of steps up to each of you. Please discharge all of your magic items.
Ugh, my feet are gonna get cold.
You see he rings the bell again as he kind of starts to look at all of you and thinks like, oh, we're gonna need more boxes. And a second and third.
Offer to put everything in the bag of holdings and then just give those to him.
Very fair. And you see the bell vanishes after you say that. And you see he rings the bell again, but this time he rings a different bell though. Like this one appears in a different color, and you see another Sphere of Nebulin comes forward with a leash, a chain leash, on a really strange-looking lizard creature that then appears. This creature has it looks like kind of like a Komodo dragon, but with some amphibious features for climbing around the rocks of the space. But it has no eyes. And its skin is semi-translucent, but mostly yellowish pallid scales. You can see under the skin is vestigial eyes that just kind of look in awkward directions and just move around constantly, but clearly don't work. A very long snoot with very pronounced nostrils at the end, and this very long snake-like tongue slithering out over and over. It just starts to sniff aggressively on each of you, and you see Timber, it sniffs and indicates like a drug dog on your boots of levitation. It just starts to pat its nose into every magic item all of you have.
Okay.
Fascinating.
I'm good.
Sean, I wanted
Go
to.
Yeah.
I wanted to see if I could sleight of hand sending stones onto Wizwick's body.
You can try. It's going to be very hard, is all I'll say. I know you have a really high sleight of hand, but it's going to be very, very hard to evade this. This
yeah.
lizard.
Well, I wanted to do this before, but yeah. I just wanted.
Well, I mean, even if you did it before, like when the lizard arrives, it's a matter of like.
Ooh. Okay.
You'd like want to wait until it like already sniffed Wizwick's body, I guess.
39.
Jesus. Yeah, it got a 27, but I like to think in this situation, because this is kind of a supernatural lizard, that like you use a little monk magic, a little shadow magic that keeps it hidden. But you definitely are able to secure the sending stones onto Wizwick's body.
Okay.
As I'm, as everybody else is putting their magic items away, I just want to ask: is there any way I could just keep one thing, just for a peace of mind?
No.
I'm not used to.
Yes.
You have to understand. You have to understand the situation that we're in, accepting several strangers in, heavily armed, coming out of nowhere. Well, not necessarily. No, we cannot allow you to walk freely with weapon or magic.
At this,
the bracelet he made me.
Timber's gonna.
Sorry, what'd you say, Shannon?
Sorry.
It's not even the bracelet he made me.
What does it do?
Lily. She's very friendly.
She likes sweets.
She does. That was Wizwick's own inspiration, actually.
You see Fizri kind of looks at Lily in a little bit of marvel. She kind of looks over to Naldo also into this, and just like you can see that look of like a family member went away. They were kind of like a little child when they left, and like she can't believe that these are Wizwick's friends, basically. And you see she does pull out of her pouch a little what looks like a little candy, and she throws it up in the air.
Yeah.
Lily like pulls your arm. Give me a persuasion roll, Scarlet.
Persuasion. 12.
I'm sorry. You can't have that on your person.
At this, Timber grabs her arm softly and says, "Scarlet, to be okay. We're right here. We'll get our items back."
Anyways, we're the Wayward Five. We don't really need this stuff. Threat.
I'll just kind of like just rip it off and just put it in the box, and then take the magical manacles that I'm wearing freely and just throw those in there too, and just sulk.
Sharon puts it in the bag and hold it. Everything.
Sean, I can't take my tattoo off, so
That's fine. Your tattoo's fine.
Okay.
Talray very carefully wraps up his weapon in like a fine cloth that he keeps for these occasions, and like tucks it away, like waits for everybody else to put all their stuff in, and then like puts his thing on top and says, "Oh, we're gonna get like some type of receipt for this, right? Like I don't want our stuff getting mixed up."
Yeah, no, the
thrown
entire
in the
time
closet somewhere.
The entire time, Woodrow has been writing down every item that you put in the bag of holding. You'll get these all back. Don't worry. Do not, just for the safety of our home.
So Kieran puts all his items in, and then once everyone else has, he'll leaning on his staff, hand the bag of holding to Woodrow.
Guess now would be a good time to say that I could, magically make a dragon appear wherever I wish, and like Mundi just like appears out of like thin air, and I'm just like, yeah, that'll sometimes happen. If that means I have to stay behind or whatever at certain points, so be it.
Why don't we say, if you can magically make it appear, you'll magically make it disappear while you're here?
Very well, you won't see him. And he just immediately disappears. I just, all hands on the table, right? I'm just cleaning out my pockets for you.
You see the lizard is moving through each of you, and the lizard, unless you try to hide something like Timber did, like the lizard's gonna know every magic thing you have. Down to like it like pats its snoot into like Sarathil's component pouch, and to find any scrap on you.
Yeah, I'm technically not even humanoid. I'm a fae, so I'm generally just all magic.
No, yeah, I know, but it's specifically looking for items. It's not like all of you reek of some kind of magic. Like Scarlet reeks of elemental magic. Timber reeks of fey magic as well. Sarathil and Huron reek of Iluvania magic. But the last thing it does is it does start to push its snoot into your staff. And Woodrow gives you a cocked eyebrow.
To which Huron just kind of shrugs a little and goes, You would not part an old man's walking stick, would you?
You gotta give it to him.
Yeah. I like to imagine this whole time Timber's also been like holding one of your arms, and the way Legolas was into Gandalf to up the ante of you being old. Give me a deception check. I'll say with advantage, because you look so old. And I'll say Timber's helping you.
I mean, there are probably times where he genuinely needs.
Yeah.
True. I would imagine so.
Look, he really needs it. He injured his knee earlier, and it just give it to him. Look at his age.
What'd you get?
8.
Oh, with advantage?
Yikes.
Beat me?
Yeah, right?
Yes, actually take all the bad rolls.
Timber, if you want to give just like one quick deception roll since you're helping him, I have a roll. Like I have a number for it, so like
I got all the 14.
His insight.
It rolled over.
Yeah.
Let me say.
He's the trap master. He's got pretty good insight. He rolled a natural 14 plus his modifier, so he looks to you, Huron, and he says, "No exceptions."
It's okay.
You can have the wolf can get.
Yeah,
wolf can hold your arm.
Come on.
We can also offer you with a temporary walking stick. It'd be a little short for you, but
you should take it, Kiran.
I appreciate the offer, thank you. And Kiran's going to place his hand on the shattered moon atop the staff and take out a moon shard. I'm not trying to really hide it. Just kind of takes it out and holds onto it as he puts the rest of the staff in.
What is that?
This is a shard of the moon, corpse moon, dead goddess Iluvania.
Always just looking at you like.
Nice and direct. Any particular reason why you just pulled it out of the staff and are keeping it and not putting it in with the rest of the magic items?
Well, you said I needed to put the staff in. This itself is not a magical item. It's simply a holy symbol that reminds me of the divine power. The staff is the magic. This shard itself, and this is the original moonstone that Kieran got as a acolyte.
Mm-hmm. Give me a persuasion roll.
9. But I mean, I will say I don't know if this would be a magic item. It's just a holy symbol. Like
True. It is all, but it is your arcane focus technically.
But it's not a magic item.
I know, but neither
it might
Sarathil's.
not Yeah, it's a weapon.
Yeah, but
Magic stone.
we'll say you're gonna. I'm gonna say he rolled low. You're gonna get to keep it, but you're not the first people they've searched. They've searched clerics before. They've searched wizards before, but he does give you a bit of a grimace and glare, but it's fair enough. We'll respect your religious mumbo jumbo.
Appreciate it. We will respect the sanctity and safety of your home.
Can the lizard smell the parasite in my brain, or is the mind blank making that invisible?
Your mind blank is making that invisible. Also, it's not exactly geared towards sniffing out like biological magic. It's geared towards art, like enchantment magic and magical items.
Cuckoo.
It might like give you like an extra like pass, and maybe it might even like kind of like. And just like ever seen like a dog just like push its nose into, like if you've seen like an actual trained dog, like a dog that's there for people with diabetes to sniff out their high blood sugar, they'll pat their snoot into them. For a few moments, it does that to the back of your neck.
Right.
But eventually, it does stop, and it just sort of immediately crawls over, and it's just like grabbing the sides of the box that has the bags of holding, and just its face is in it, just going.
You might want to. There are some dangerous items in there that
you
left alone.
See Woodrow or the handler whistles, and then you see he pulls out this like little glittering shard and just sort of throws it in the air, and it just. You see its mouth, like whatever it ate just there was like a magic gusher, because the entire inside of its mouth is just covered in like this now like glowing blue light after it ate that. But it seems like satisfied now, where it doesn't sniff for anything. It's not looking for magic items anymore once it ate this. All right. Well, next step is to do a quick search, and you'll be under Fizri's. Don't roll your eyes. This is a search for mind flayer infections and any other maladies you might carry.
You're not gonna draw blood, are you?
No.
Okay.
No. They're just gonna search for any, like it's like, if you've ever searched for mites on your pets or anything like that. Or you yourself. But he then snaps his fingers and two more severe benevolent come out, and they just start to come up to each of you, and just like like some of them they do like an actual literal like pat down, just like a quick pat down, but they are just like generally like observing you. Like they will like ask you to bend over, and they will actually like do exactly that. Timber, be like, please pull your eyes open. Yeah, they'll do a quick prostate exam. No.
That's where the mind
it's really
sorry.
It's where they get you.
That's where they...
But if they don't,
yeah, Scarlet's lucky. That's right.
Yeah, but it's really, this part is more of a precaution because most likely the lizard would have found any mind flayer problems. So they just do a last minute kind of check on you. They ask you a few questions, just like about like general things. To try to like, it seems like they're doing like kind of like a mental aptitude test to see if you've been like corrupted in some way or are under a mind control spell. They do stop at Scarlet for a little while, and they're just kind of like, because you can tell they also have like some magical sense for this. They are doing some kind of detecting of magic. You for a moment could realize that they're probably casting detect thoughts on you to a certain extent. And they're just kind of like looking at Scarlet.
What? I'm not
Kieran
hiding
will like
anything.
lean down towards them and kind of be like, she's had a very traumatic past. Sometimes manifests itself in different ways.
Kieran, less is more.
It's a necessary precaution.
All right.
She's gotta,
A what?
Huh?
You see the two, like, they kind of, they take the answer. They're not going to, like, push it. But you do, Kieran, you definitely hear one of them whisper to the other one, I've never met anyone who has an empty head. But finally Woodrow is like, see, that wasn't so hard, was it?
It's actually kind of complicated and a bit of a process, but all for the safety of Smoothhold, right?
Exactly. Isri, they are under your charge. I will be checking in. If they overstay their welcome, bring them only your neighborhood, your borough, and then we will escort them out very soon. We'll give you at least 2 days. All right, let's right this way. And he kind of claps his hands, and you all walk. If you'd like, you can follow him through the invisible barrier.
Yeah, under the guise of under the guise of helping Kieran walk more, I'm gonna go stand next to Kieran because I'm feeling feeling very vulnerable without all of my shit. So, it's gonna stick near Kieran.
I'd likewise like to move next to Timber and just go, you mind if, in case he was telling the truth and not just messing with me, more spiders, I just kind of hold on to your shoulder as we continue.
Yes. Sure. That's all right. Do you want a ride? We can give you one.
That's not necessary. I'm more than capable of walking. Just a guide is fine.
Okay. Yeah. That's fine. You can stick close.
When you step through, you suddenly hear the sounds of rushing water. As you step through, you're immediately within this space of really smooth stone that seems to have been smoothed over the years, not by the hands of this Svirfneblin, but by this water. As you realize you're behind an underground waterfall that was hidden here, and you can see this in this large expanded area. There is this kind of like small built into the rock wall. For what you can presume it is like a guard station, where you can see a few of these Svirfneblin guardians are there. You see there are several spiders over there, Sarathil. But what catches your eye more so than the spiders is when you look up and you can see about a dozen giant bats hanging from the ceiling. And when I say,
how big are we talking about? Are we talking like wolf bats, like that are in Australia, or like bigger?
No. I'm talking like these ones are bigger than the spiders.
I'd like to think that Timber is afraid of bats, so that he grabs up the
Like Scooby-Doo, you jump into his arms.
Yeah.
But these bats are also clearly done up with writing material. There are about a dozen of them that are larger than the spiders, large enough to carry probably at least 3 Zirfneblin on their backs. But then in the middle of these, there seems to be larger ones yet. They seem to be almost like they have grayed fur, and you can tell these are older bats, almost as if these bats don't necessarily stop growing under the right conditions.
Sean, how similar are these bats to the one in Drift March?
They definitely look like they don't look like that bat. They look like that bat was a corruption of these bats.
Got it.
Like they there's all the large ones, but then there's the huge ones in the middle. They're definitely, I mean, by all means, they are bats, so they aren't pretty. But they have just a general lack of, say, like horns and demonic features that bat had. But you could there's definitely a somewhat of a similarity. But the big ones are the ones that Woodrow immediately kind of whistles, and they kind of they fall down. They have these big wings though, and they're holding on, and they kind of just sort of like do this flip down, and then and they come up, and it's almost comical in the way that they suddenly have like this really high-pitched squeaking noise that comes out of them, despite being, larger than Noldo. And they just sort of come up, and you see Woodrow kind of like pulls on a strap on them, and suddenly he kind of gets pulled up to the top of it, where he then like kind of grabs onto the back. And you can see there's plenty of room on this bat. And he just looks at each of you and says, "Well, all aboard."
I just start flying next to him.
You see several ropes come down for you all to pull on. As Fizri climbs onto the back of the other one, so like you'll split up between the two.
Okay. Kieran would probably go on the one that Woodrow's on.
And I'll stay with Kieran.
Sarathil and Timber will go with Fizri then?
Yep.
Okay. He would then say, kind of to all of you, looking around, he would be like, and you could see, like, when you get on the bat, you can see, like, the saddle work, and because there's like a several seated saddle on the back that can fit all of you, and the craftsmanship is beautiful. There are gems inlaid in all of the saddles. It's kind of morose because most likely these saddles are probably made of the lizards' hides that you saw in the previous chambers. You can see they are kind of this hide leather that has this yellow scales to it. Waste not, want not in the Underdark. But it's gorgeous. The light of these gems glitters off of the torchlight that's on the walls as the bat starts to slowly walk towards the waterfall wall that you see. And he looks over and shouts to Sarathil and says, "Once we're through the waterfall, I'd suggest keeping your eyes closed until we get to our destination." And then he kind of kicks the side of the bat, and it goes barreling out at top speed and whooshes through the waterfall.
By the moon.
Absolutely. And then Fizri follows behind. And what follows next is this large chamber that you are barreling down in, kind of circling and spiraling down on the bat's back. You enter into it, and you can kind of see, you look around, and suddenly you see like dozens and dozens of tunnels all up this cylindrical passageway that leads deeper down. And you reach about halfway down, and like you see Zirfneblin now. Little groups of them moving about. This looks like a mine particularly. Like, this area is primarily a mine shaft. But there's so many entrances and exits and burrows and hollows that if you were just walking, you'd have no idea how to get anywhere. There are little signs above each of the, not signs, but carved into the stone are Zvirfneblin runes that seem to almost shift with the light, where they are only visible from the right angle with the right light. But as you're dipping down, you're twisting and turning and twisting and turning, and you dive down and go through another small waterfall into another cavern, moving through that cavern. Twists and turns, twists and turns. Everyone give me a Constitution saving throw.
Oh. Bye, guys.
I get puke on me. from Sarathil.
I imagine I don't really have many bodily fluids, so I'm just dry heaving.
Oh god,
Oh,
necrotic bile.
No.
It's a new ability.
It burns my skin.
Anyone who got less than a 10 definitely loses their stomach.
Yeah, I'm in the
No.
too.
Yeah, and like Talray, like, you don't lose it as much because you're following and flying, so like you have some control. Imagine like almost like Talray, like you stop for a moment because it's too much for you and then catch up, as opposed to just straight vomiting like Sarathil.
just a verp.
Yeah.
Vomit burp.
It's because it's just stomach acid and good berries basically coming out of him. But anyway, you pass through and you realize like you went through this kind of like work area, this mine shaft, this expansion of Smoothhold. Now you can feel that you're actually entering what might be the actual Smoothhold, but it's even hard to tell because you don't even know how far you've traveled at this point with how quickly the bats are moving and the way they weave in and out of tunnels. To the point where you're like, did we just go in a circle? Was that the same tunnel? I could have swore I saw that same rock. But you keep moving through. You kind of like pass really quickly this one tunnel where you can see a much bigger version of that yellow lizard just digging, almost like a bulldozer digging another tunnel. You pass by and you fly under, and Sarathil, this is a moment where you might want to close your eyes as you see a pack of spiders climbing on the ceiling of a tunnel with Zvirfneblin riding on their backs, and they go up a vertical tunnel upwards. And it's just overwhelming the intricacies of the honeycomb that is the Zvirfneblin home. And you're not sure if you're in Smoothhold at all. You're just in Zvirfneblin territory. But eventually,
Sounds like
you
Final
start to
Fantasy
see.
music. Sorry.
I know, right? It does. It really does. But you eventually start to find areas where there's more houses, homes built into the rock. There's more infrastructure beyond kind of the digging and the work of the Zvirfneblin. But once again, you kind of like swiftly go up a vertical pipe, and a right angle happens. The bat almost like bumps into a wall and then goes through another burrow. And then you kind of almost like the ground drops beneath you and the bats fall and they dive down. And you see yourself in an area where it's larger than the rest. You can see there are 8 tunnels kind of opening in a circle around this area, where you could just see a single little stone hut in the middle. And a Zvirfneblin seems to be like sitting on a stone table at this little hut. There's like one torch lit next to him, lighting this whole space. Although you can kind of like, there are these kind of like ethereal waves in the ceiling They look like Aurora Borealis, kind of. But as you get closer, they're floating flatworms, wriggling in the air and shimmering in colors, and they're just sort of swimming around up above. As you can see, these mushrooms that are down below, you see occasionally one will start to glow this bright purple and blue and pink color, almost like cotton candy, before it gets so big that the top kind of spits out this big bubble that just floats up to the top, and these flatworms all just kind of start to eat it. And you see the bats kind of hover and circle this area. You see one of the bats kind of like is like the bat that Sarathil and Timber are on, kind of like is like trying to fly up to the flatworms and goes for a bite on one of them, but it quickly swims out of the way and disappears completely, as if becoming invisible. But you all kind of settle down below, and you see Woodrow steps off and goes up, and you can see he kind of like throws a few stone tablets onto the table with this one Zvirfneblin, who has like a guard's uniform on almost. And when I say a guard's uniform, I mean like a doorbell uniform. He just has kind of like this fez on, and this like maroon uniform, and he's just got his legs up on the stone tablet, and he's just kind of like reading a book. And he looks and sees. He grabs 2 of the 3 stone tablets and then hands another one back. And Woodrow kind of nods, takes the tablets, and then hops back on, and you go off again. At this point, you go into a space that's completely dark. Only those of you with dark vision really have an idea of what's going on around you. And there's a point when you stop, and he goes in and kind of like, I'd say at least Sarathil, or not Sarathil, I'm sorry, Curon and Timber can see this with their level of dark vision. Scarlet, you're not quite as high as their dark vision, and I mean, Timber can see everything. But you see he kind of like, there's this stone opening, and he kind of puts the 2 tablets into a little slot on the side, and you hear it kind of like open on the other side, and then suddenly the gates open, and your bats fling out again. But this time, this area is clearly a neighborhood. You've got the ceiling with these large stalactites, and there's one kind of central waterfall that comes down into a very small pond in the middle, where you can see stone buildings are built into the walls, but also built into what look like impossibly large stalagmites that shoot upwards, almost like little cone houses, almost like cliche gnome houses. Built into the natural rock. But this is where Woodrow lands, and Fizri falls behind, and quickly looks to you all and says, "All right, well, I think this is our stop. Fizri, I'll be back tomorrow to check in, and then I'll be back the following morning to escort these fine adventurers out of our caves."
Oh, compliment.
Huron goes to dismount from the bat, and he... Oh, okay, he's not terrible. He
I'm helping.
managed to, wobble. Yeah, as you help him, and the small staff that Woodrow gave him. I'm not sure that giant bats are my best mode of transportation.
As you see, my hair's fluffed all over the place. Mine either.
Huron's bun is out.
Sarathil's just still in the saddle, on it, but just hunched down, just lying down in front.
Timber has his arms you could roll down. It's okay, I got you.
I'll just go with his feelings. And one standing up, just kind of just hold on to the bat. Just kind of wiping his mouth.
Yeah, Talray is just tired. He's panting, damn, those things are pious.
Why are you tired? Shouldn't Mundy be tired?
I mean,
Mundy wasn't flying. He was flying.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I thought you said you're riding a Mundy. Never mind.
Tal'Darim would be very tired.
Yeah.
But you would see, and also like you would see like the bat was like the one that Woodrow was on was like or Fizri was on was legitimately like carrying Noldo by his arms in its feet.
I was about to ask that because it was like where.
Yeah, the very first thing it did when it got here was just drop Noldo, and Noldo had to hold himself in a ball to protect Wizwick's body, and it just landed like an anchor on the ground. But if you would like, since you may know or may have some ideas, Clayton, if you want, you can give us a little brief description of what you have in mind for what Fizwick's hometown, kind of home quarter, looks like. And especially as we approach Wizwick's family's actual house.
So, like
Gotta
Sean
do it in Wizwick's
described-
voice.
All right, so way back when there was like a campfire night where you guys were all like hanging out with Wizwick, and you got him a little wasted. Maybe he had too much of that mushroom wine, and he started describing this place to you. He didn't tell you where it was or what it was named, but you can infer that it was the place you're looking at right now. It's kind of like I would say it's kind of set up in circles, kind of like cul-de-sacs of these like giant, smoothed out rock huts, kind of similar to like, I don't know, like tents almost. Like they each have like different circles of tents that people use for different things, and it's very community driven. So a lot of the people who like they're family tents, but that family tent is open to anyone, and people come in and out of tents depending on like what people are like using it for and stuff like that. Most of the time, some of the older men in the family are away because they're on like mining excavations and stuff. So most of the regular menial tasks are done by like the female part of the population. So there's a lot of people like there's a lot of women who are like chiseling etchings into the smooth croppings, like different swirly designs like you've seen Wizwick do graffiti of in the past. There's a lot of people out and about. There's not a lot of people in their homes, just walking around. The kids are playing outside, there's a section, like there's an upper layer of the thing that's 4 giant bats, because they use them for transfer through all these tunnel systems, or, different creatures. So I'd imagine there's a section split apart for, animals like beasts of burden. And like there's an upper terrace section in the stone that's basically where all the bats live, like kind of like a rookery. And last but not least, there's probably a section that's maybe in that higher zone where the rookery was, that has a few outcasted buildings that aren't really connected to all the other ones. Some might be older, and they also have a more modern style. Like you can see that they were made with mud and like, some sort of like cement mixture instead of the typical like carved out buildings. And you can infer from what Wizwick told you that that's probably where Uncle Owick resides.
Absolutely, and you can see the 2 bats that brought you here, kind of they themselves flap up to the rookery and take a place of rest as another single bat comes down to take Woodrow beyond back to where he came from. But yeah, Fizri would look to you all, and you see Noldo actually, as he lands, would kind of like stand upright and step out on the outcropping you're on right now, and is just staring out across this whole space. As much as a rock can look amazed and awed, you almost have to go over and like tap on his rocky shoulder to get him to move.
Kieran will, I almost imagine it's like a crutch more so than a staff. Walk over and be like, "You home, big guy?"
So many Zirfneblin, so many minds in one place. Is overwhelming.
Take your time. I'm sure you'll get used to it soon enough. Or until all of you, merge into the great consciousness that is Noldegrove, right?
And the head kind of like quickly looks at you, almost like, what? Like it knows that he knows that, but like, what? Why would you say that?
I don't know. I just.
You do notice like there's a point when he kind of like lifts Wizwick's head up as if he's looking, as he's in the sack in the front. We must go.
Yes, of course.
Frizri's like, so I don't know how involved you want to be here and what you want to do.
Well, I imagine, it's a family affair. If you wanted to take Noldo and bring, Wizwick back home, I'd imagine you'd all understand. I'm like looking at my friends, just saying, that's not our place to intrude, but we do have to, spend time there. Does the rest of the family know that we're gonna be staying for 2 days? I mean, was that just like the plan, or?
Oh, I didn't tell them that part. I just told them about the news.
It's fine. We can just stay outside. We're if we have a nice piece of ground,
Yeah.
I'm sure the family would. I think the family would love to have you. You're friends of Wizwick's. Maybe you could stay with Uncle Owick.
How big is your family again?
Well, there's me. I've got our two younger brothers. Grimgog, Thalric, Gruul, Shulk, Fenkerus, Jarius, Netherrock, Brimwick, Zangog, Borb, Phelan, Jenkerus, Felius, Netherrock.
Borg?
Of course, we've got Uncle Owick, Werf, Brugni, their hair, G, Stonehenge. We've got Mom and Dad, of course.
They don't have last names? And 12 middle names?
Well, everyone does. Of course they...
7 million.
I don't, they're Mom and Dad to me.
Alright. You don't call your mom Jen or something like that?
Don't call her Breezy. See Sarban, Ironheart, Chi, Osmu, Netherrock.
Because I'm tight.
I know you wanted to talk to Uncle Owick, right?
I mean, it's... Have you ever heard stories about, like, legendary individuals and you just wanted to meet them to see match up to what you imagined?
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how I think most of us feel about Owick. Just very intrigued.
Well, I can organize a bat to bring you up.
Oh.
Well,
Any chance he could ride a bat down here?
Is there any other rules we should be aware of? Like, I kind of, wanted to leave you to do your family things. Could I take a look around? Like, are people... Is that okay? Like, is there a spot where I shouldn't go?
Well, most folks are probably gonna get a little spooked by you if you're intruding. I mean, things are pretty open here, but you got to remember, like, we don't get a lot of strangers here.
They don't give out like visitor passes that shows that we're tourists coming through.
I mean, all I would say is you can't leave this sector by Woodrow's orders. I'd rather you not get me and my family in trouble.
Of course.
So
maybe you go inside, talk to your family. We'll wait out here, and then you just let us know when's a good time.
All right. Well, follow me. We'll go to the house. And she leads you over to Wizwick's family home. Is there any distinct features of Wizwick's family home, Clayton? Or is it roughly similar to the other larger dwellings?
Yeah, I'd say it's just a little bit on the larger side. Mostly because, his father's kind of prominent in the area. Like, it would probably be very central in the area, because most of the important buildings are all in the center, since they're all shared most often. And I would also imagine that you would see, a lot of other Snurfneblin coming in and out of there, and you would have no idea, like, we would all have no idea whether they're Wizwick's family or not, but it looks like there's a lot of them.
Yeah. So Fizri leads you to this space, and she kind of looks up at Naldo and kind of like gives him kind of like a come on, and then looks to all of you and says, I'll be out soon to bring you up to Owick. You see she leads Naldo in. Naldo kind of melds into the stone to get inside. This is the first moment that you're all kind of alone here without a chaperone. Is there anything you want to do?
I
feel very out of place.
I think we all do.
I don't know, it's kind of nice down here.
Oh, never mind, we don't all do. I do too, Shannon. Or it's correct.
I mean, I'd have to side with Kira on this. Aside from the giant spiders, it is quite remarkable the stone structure that's in here. Sarathil kind of like lose train of like exactly what he was saying as he'll like flip through that geology book that he got and just kind of like look at some of like the architecture or just like the stonecraft and stuff and like read in the book. It's like, oh, yeah, so that's how that was made.
Yeah, I am. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go.
I had imagined that like if it's a geology book, you would be able to like identify every single type of mushroom that's like that they're growing and all that.
Yeah, there's definitely a whole section in the book about a particular type of agriculture the Svirfneblin practice, which are these like kind of like like they take like a stone pillar in a cavern that is particularly suitable to them. It needs to be suitable. It needs to have the right type of appearance and appreciation, as well as the right size, measurements, everything. It's very rare they need to find the exact right pillar, and then they dig around it. But they stone shape maneuver the pillar to create these tiers that you see these mushrooms kind of patch around and then kind of overgrow and turn into these very much so like contemporary engineering designs of vertical farms in the real life. But for growing these subsistence mushrooms that are a major staple of the diet of Svirfneblin. In addition to the flatfish that are gathered.
Oh yeah, Sarathil's just kind of like trailing off a little bit. He might be just wandering a little too far, just like taking down research, just annotating in the book that he's in.
Yeah, but it's also very important to harvest the right amount of these mushrooms to allow for enough light to still maintain in the area, because the mushrooms are also bioluminescent in a lot of situations and are the main source of light in a lot of these areas, other than occasional torches for more specific needs, like candles and whatnot. All right.
Yeah, I'd imagine Talray just tries to look for, just walks around in a circle, like maybe just like around the building, to just get his bearings, not leaving too far, but
Yeah.
if anybody, starts talking, like he wouldn't openly, he'd wave to people if they were looking at him weird, but unless somebody strikes up conversation, he wouldn't say anything, but he's trying to, look friendly.
Yeah.
Basically
Absolutely.
just trying to get people accustomed to, seeing him.
Oh, there would definitely be like people watching you all. But if you looked at them, they'd definitely try to hide right away. And children might be a little bit more open to staring and ogling at you, and even chasing, getting closer. But generally, they're going to keep their distance from you. Almost like when you put like an obstacle in front of an ant colony when they're moving, and they'll just sort of completely move around it. Like people are clearly still going in and out of all these different dwellings, but they're like keeping their wide distance from you. Probably the only person here that they'd be relatively open to would be Curon or Strani, because they're Strani's from the Underdark and Curon's an Elysian, which they at least know what they are. Like they'd look, some of them, Scarlet, you would notice a few of them just like looking at you very weirdly, because you basically look like a tall Zvirfneblin. And they're just like,
they're staring an awful lot.
what did she do?
You remember Wizwick? They're peculiar.
Yes, that's true. I don't suppose this would be a time to discuss our next plan, or should we wait until after we've paid our respects?
I think it would be polite to hold off till then. See what kind of ceremony the Deep Gnomes have.
As you say that, you would start to hear like the sounds of the family inside. You'd hear cries of dismay, weeping. Huron, you would, as you somewhat become connected to, you would feel a wave of that empathic magic of the Zvirfneblin. And you would notice like other Zvirfneblin that were going about their business would stop in their tracks and look to the Netherrock house. And their faces would show this grief as the kind of network almost of Zvirfneblin's empathic magic swoops through the neighborhood. And there's almost a sense of stillness that comes, even though people rather quickly recover from it if they're not directly related. But there's a wave going through the whole village. You'd start to hear a little bit of shouting inside. And you'd see a older Zvirfneblin that looks an awful lot like Wizwick, but aged significantly, steps out. Wrinkles, some scars actually that almost look like battle scars to a certain extent. These heavy kind of wrinkled bags under the eyes, balding hair, but it looks just like Wizwick's, with a beard just like Wizwick's. And he comes rushing out and stops at the edge of their home as Fizri kind of rushes up and kind of grabs his shoulder, and he's staring at all of you with vitriol in his eyes.
Huron will slowly approach and kind of bow a little towards the individual and go, I assume you must be Wizwick's father.
Kind of brushes his shoulder off of Fizri's hand. I told that boy not to go to the surface. And look what happened. We found some surfacers and you got him killed.
You're not wrong, Huron says as he kneels in front of him. Continues. He met some surfacers, and he is now gone. But it wasn't for naught. No, your son's life. The work he did up there. The joy he brought to so many more than if he had simply stayed here. The people he saved, the people he helped.
He belonged down here with his family.
If he had belonged here, he would have stayed here. But the gods saw that Wizwick's light was too bright to keep in the dark. He needed to shine in his own way. And I'll tell you something. There are many surface dwellers where when you bring up the name Wizwick Netherrock, a smile will come across their face for the joy that your son brought so many. And I'm sorry that we meet on such sour terms. Cannot stress enough how amazing and needed Wizwick was above.
You sound like Oak. And you see he steps forward and he just like punches your chest.
Kieran
kinda
reaches
like-
out and does he like come close?
He's close, yeah. Like he's like he knows like first of all like he knows you're a lot bigger than him, but like he's overwhelming with grief and is just it's not like he's trying to hurt you. He's just
Right.
getting anger out.
Kieran puts one arm around, draws him close. It's okay. He's still with us. Just not.
You look up and you would see like all of Wizwick's family is kind of gathered at the entrance to the home. You see his mother, who looks an awful lot like Fizri, but similarly advanced in her years. You'd see these two very small Fear of Nevlin, one bigger than the other. You imagine this is Grimwick and Grimgog. Grimgog's almost as tall as Wizwick. He's almost mature to mining age. But you see the whole of the family staring off at you. And that's where we're going to take our break. Folks, we'll be back in 5 minutes, so please stick around with us. We'll be back in just a few moments. You're sticking around with us.
Yeah.
Hey, friends, welcome back to Advantage in Paradise. The Wayward Five have made their way into Smoothhold, where they have been confronted by Wizwick's father, Jacob, who has basically accused them of being the reason his son is dead, which is not entirely wrong, but Curon has comforted him, and Curon, in the moment, he does seem to, like, relent a bit, but there's, like, you notice as you bring him in, he does tense up, and you can hear that, like, he was holding back his emotions, and now that you've embraced him, he is letting them go. At that point, you start to see Wizwick's family stepping out from the shadows of their home, and they seem to one by one. And some of them you're not sure if some of the folks are Wizwick's family or if they're friends or they're just village community. But they seem to all approach each of you, and like each of them holds a handout to each of you. Not you. The dad's on you. Well, Fizri will come up to you with Jacob.
Yeah, Taure is just gonna like lean down and take the hand and say my condolences in Elvish. I mean, sorry, Gnomish, but I don't know if that's what they're speaking, but it's the closest language he knows.
Yeah, it'll break through a little bit, not perfectly, because they do kind of have their own language. But they just kind of slowly lead each of you into the house. The taller of you have to kind of bend down a little bit to get inside, but inside it's fairly spacious. You see the walls are decorated with the circular runic structures of the Zirk Neblin, as well as different glittering gems, as well as tablets of stone that have different things etched into them, as well as sort of depictions of the family etched into these stones. There's actually kind of like a whole mural above what you can only surmise is the kitchen. It's kind of a mosaic of gems and stones that make up kind of just like a what just looks like a family portrait of it's not like a super photorealistic, but there's you can clearly see like the father, and as you get closer you can there's just something about it that you can very much so pick out Wizwick in the lineup. But they just start to slowly lead you and offer you places to sit and rest, and they start to bring you food. As you can see, Wizwick's body is kind of on a stone table right now. You can see Noldo is kind of melded into the walls of this entire place, just sort of semi-ominously kind of watching Wizwick's body. If you didn't know who Noldo was, you'd be like, what? But Fizri would kind of pull Jacob away from you, Curon, and sort of lead him away a bit, knowing he's still angry. And there's now kind of just a quiet moment, sort of awake almost, for Wizwick. As you can see, several of his family members sort of take turns at the body. You hear them kind of whispering in a language you don't understand.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, Taure kind of just feeling awkward and like off put from the whole thing, tries to like bring people together and sits down and says, well, I know this can be a tough time, and thank you for letting us into your home to be here for Wizwick. I didn't know him too well, but one thing that I find very helpful in times like these is to remember the good times. I don't know, maybe we can share some stories from how these folk got to know Wizwick, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about how he was when he lived here.
You can clearly see that Wizwick's father is still angry and in that, stoic seething is kind of the mentality, but you would very clearly see Fizri is receptive to this, and she would just say, "Yeah, we would love to hear some stories of Bilgru." You would hear, some folks start to tell stories of Wizwick when he was a young boy, how curious he was, how much he loved his family fiercely, but also how, even for Neblin culture, he was a bit odd, a bit of a quirky fellow. They offer you these sort of salted fish and mushrooms and different teas and whatnot. It's probably a ways into this that you would hear, you would start to notice people outside, as several of the villagers of Smoothhold are kind of gathered out there. A few of them seem to be coming forward and offering up little gifts. You can see some gems, but also different food and mushroom wines and other things. People seem to have immediately gone to their homes and been like, "We need to find something to give this family." And some of them have very great gifts. Some have very small gifts. Some are just trinkets. Someone leaves like a really finely made pickaxe. And then you would notice eventually a very shrunken Neblin appears at the entrance with a cane, stepping very, very slowly in. As you can presume, you're looking at Uncle Owick. You see Wizwick's father, J. Corb, kind of immediately steps to his feet aggressively, looking at Owick. Like he's about to almost like push him out or like assault him almost with how angry he looks as there's tears welling in his eyes. As Fizri similarly kind of holds on to her father to stop him from doing anything. And he just sort of slowly inches forward. And comes upon Wizwick's body. He doesn't say anything. He just sort of puts a hand in Wizwick's hand. And there's a warm smile that comes onto his face. Owick's face is so wrinkly. He has a somewhat of at this age, a spotty beard. That very old gray beard where you can kind of see through to the skin underneath. Very advanced hairline that kind of comes back into a small knot. Comfortable robes, just a little cane, but that smile comes up, and you see those like smile lines in the jowls of his face. And he kind of has his eyes closed as he smiles and nods. And he immediately looks to Noldo as that smile remains firm. Kind of the din of conversation comes up between people as they're sharing and commiserating and giving each other condolences. What would you like to do at this point? You can wait out the wake and wait till after to try to talk to people, or you could talk to people now, or you could leave.
Timber would probably, or I don't know, I can speak for the group, but probably wait until later to speak to anybody individually.
I mean, Sharon would probably approach Owick after he's, had his time with Wizwick. And go,
Yeah.
So you must be the fabled Uncle Owick. It's a pleasure. Wizwick only spoke highly about you. His friend and companion, Kiranis Listane.
And you see Owick takes like a deep breath in, like he's got to really take the air in to talk. Holds a hand out to you. Owick, Worf, Brugny, Fairhair, Gee, Kui, Stonehenge. You were the friends Wizwick had.
Yes, we all were. Except for the wood elf there, but I feel like him and Wizwick share a special bond that I can't really... And that's not the... We're all champions of Illuvania, so I guess we share that bond. Your nephew was an incredible individual and a boon to our adventuring in the surface above. We actually... We saw your signature in the old what was that inn that we went to, the bucket gin, the gin
Frog gin bucket.
Sure, that mouth vomit. Yep, that's the one. Word vomit.
Oh, is it still run by Miles?
Yes, Miles and his partner Dave and the dumb dog.
Well, thank you for taking care of the boy.
It was quite a handful at times, but to his credit, Wizwick also took care of us on more than one occasion.
I was always concerned when he went to the surface. No, he wanted to follow in my footsteps. Never thought I prepared the boy well enough. And I suppose I didn't.
I mean, can any of us say that we were fully prepared for the trials life would bring us?
Very astute. You see, Wizwick did more than I ever could. There. And he looks back at Naldo now. The secrets he's unlocked. Oh.
He's in there, you know, Kieran says, gesturing towards Noldo. Well, maybe not inside Noldo himself, but in the collective of Noldogra, who it seems your people is familiar with.
I felt it as soon as I walked in here.
Well, you may want to keep an eye on that one, Kieran says, pointing back to Noldo. As he crossed over, Wizwick spoke out to us. Said he's got some work to do, but he'll be back. I don't know how, but...
Sounds like the boy. You always wanted to work on our research and adventures. And you see Naldo kind of shifts over to join you all, and you see Uncle Owick kind of immediately like hobbles over to Naldo, and Naldo kind of bends down to his level. You see Uncle Owick kind of like he kind of like for a moment takes the cane up, and he's sort of shaky like Huron was a few moments ago, but he kind of adjusts the cane and then starts to tap on the arcane core at the heart of Noldo, and with kind of like a laughter to him. Then looks into the eyes of the golem and says, Noldo. Yes, you can call me Noldo, for my name is too long for you to learn here, and for me to recite you would expire before the Noldagra. Yes. And then you see kind of Oek kind of pulls something out from his robe. As you can see this small kind of like... The arcane core is quite large. When Wizwick held it, he had to hold it like this. Oek has a very, very small chunk of what looks like a similar shard. And he kind of holds it up and he just looks up with a smile and says, I think this belongs to you. And he holds it to the arcane core, and you can see that all the light shimmers from it, and then the chunk gets absorbed into it. And Noldo kind of like... I am flooded with memories.
New external device detected. Would you like to open the folder?
What would you like to do with this folder? I'd like to disconnect it.
Option.
It is, yeah. I'd like to remove the device. Something is open that is using the device. He kind of looks up and looks down at Uncle Oek and says, little one, I can feel the presence of hundreds of Zvirfneblin mines all around. I can feel the presence of Wizwick, Bilgru, Farlight, Yellen, Jedri, Pedri, Netherwork, all around me. The people here. Thank you for filling in the gaps of the picture. There is much work to be done. Oek, Werf, Brogni, Berher, Gi, Qui, Stonehenge. And then he'll look up to you all. Say, but there are promises to be fulfilled for Master Netherwork. And he looks to you, Kieran, particularly. And Oek kind of like smacks the arcane core again, and then turns around and smiles and kind of puts the cane down, standing in front of you all, and says, well, Wizwick did quite a lot up there. But also, he seemed to have imprinted quite well on all of you. Just as this one here, Noldo, did. I know that you can't stay long. If you wouldn't mind joining me for some mushroom tea before you go. I'll be up there. And you see he slowly hobbles out.
Not quite what I imagined. I didn't realize he'd be so old. He reminds me of an old Elysian character. Broken tongue, very verb and then subject. I think he went by the name of Yodi or something.
Jedri.
I'm just
he green?
imagining as he walks out the door, he just fades away and his clothes are left behind.
And then you see his soul getting sucked into Naldo.
No, he reappears upstairs and he inside of his pajamas and
Oh, that's even better, actually. Yeah, Uncle Owick just leaves clothes behind and just teleports all over the place and puts new clothes on.
He's a nudist.
only in the ethereal plane do you go naked.
That's true.
There's
I
no
feel
rules
like
in the ethereal
there's-
plane.
There's so much that I want to say, but I can't find the words to say it. You know, we have so many stories about him.
Yes, but which ones do you want to tell that won't make them all realize how, what's the word I want to use here?
Eccentric.
Chaotic was the word I
That's
was
a better
thinking
word.
of.
Yeah.
That's a much better word. Do you remember his wake-up calls?
Oh. I mean, I was
Used to.
usually already awake, but they brought you to a whole new level of
Alertness.
consciousness.
Yes.
I hated them so much in the moment, but I miss it now too, strangely. Sarathil, he used to bang pots and pans together to wake everyone up, and it was quite obnoxious.
Sure, at the time, it seemed annoying. But now that's all you can think about.
All I can think about is all the... I don't know the word to use. It was rude to him a lot. He was so annoying.
It's true, but I think that was part of his charm.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I had fun telling him that my wife was a better mage. But I never got to tell him that he actually was.
When I first met him, he told me he controlled the weaves of magic. At the time, I believed him. And then I realized that maybe he overspoke just how in control he was. By the end, he could do anything. When he set his mind to it.
Right.
I'll
Pretend
never
it's
quite.
true.
I'll
Pretend
never
it's,
quite. Go ahead. Sorry. You go.
pretend it's true long enough, and soon it'll become true. Fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah. I'll never quite forgive him for putting up that wall of force when we were going to see Cal. It was kind of a shit move.
Yes, but yeah.
I also never did. I never did tell him thank you for that comfort he gave me after finding out about my brother.
Well,
Well,
he'll be back.
apparently he is not done yet. So, whatever that means.
Yes. Fake it till you make it. Mr. Netherrock will never be gone.
We
I wish
all-
you all could have been there when he found the core.
Oh, sure, he was most ecstatic.
Oh, he was beside himself. Immediately wanted to get to work.
He was always rushing ahead. Something you two had in common, Kieran says, looking at Scarlet.
Yes, but sometimes it got him into more trouble. He didn't sign up to be a rogue, as he said.
Shall we go have some tea?
Yeah.
Yes.
And Fizri helps you get a bat to bring you all up to the home of Owick. Fizri kind of leans over to Scarlet and says, he used to bang pots and pans all the time when we were younger. Day of the Festival of the Stars. He would run so fast that he'd forget to change out of his pajamas. He'd get them all wet and gross and muddy when we go down to the lake to see the luminous fungus.
Did that once
It's
or
like
twice with us at camp, too.
Thank you for bringing him home.
Of course. I wish it could have been under better circumstances.
She nods understanding as these bats come down and you're able to mount and fly up to Owick's little home.
So I'll take over for a second here, Sean.
Go for it.
Uncle Owick's house is made of like this, concrete structure. It's kind of similar to like a classic wizard's tower, where it's just like a large cylinder and then like a rounded dome roof. And it's much bigger than, some of the buildings below. You could assume that it was probably made with magic. The only smooth hold, swirly patterns, like graffiti style things that you see on it are some small ones that were probably made by Wizwick or one of his siblings when they were younger. And just looking inside, because they don't really use doors or windows like around here, you can tell that the thing is piled high with old books and like memory. Looks more like a surface home that you would see, like typical like wooden what's called floors and things that you like wouldn't expect would be down here. Lots of books, He's got a lot of collectors stuff.
I imagine you would also see like some memorabilia from Uncle Owick's time on the surface. Like you would just see like artifacts or remnants of the surface that he picked up on his travels, whether it's just sort of like a flag or a banner.
Yeah. He's definitely got like a magic staff with like a bat with the ruby eyeballs at the end of it, like hanging above his mantle place or something like that.
Totally. I think the best way to describe it is just like really like super retired wizard vibes. Like he's probably done like there's probably so much knowledge here and so many artifacts. But when you go in the at least in the kitchen and dining area where he would accept you in, there's tea already ready to go. That has been burning under a conjured flame. And he's already pouring the cups as you walk in. You would actually notice, like, Naldo didn't go on the bats to come up. Naldo just, like, sank into the ground. And then when you got up there, just came up out of the rock in the room. And seems to, like, almost, like, already be, like, not replacing Wizwick with Owick, but already, like, reacting to Owick in the ways he would work with Wizwick. Where like Wizwick, like Naldo would work really in tandem with Wizwick, predicting each other's movements and whatnot. And he seems to start doing the same things with Owick as soon as he gets in there. But Owick would have everything all set up for you all, and he would just kind of gesture to welcome you in.
Thank you for receiving us. Can I... It feels strange, but may I call you Uncle Owick?
I get that a lot. Well, not really. People don't come up here often. A lot like Wizwick, I'm a bit of a oddity.
Well, if you're anything like Wizwick, you'll have plenty of stories to tell.
And you see he kind of like taps the wooden floors with his cane and says, "You won't find floors like this anywhere else in the Underdark. Nor banners like that. Any of these texts, really, or a home like this. But yes, we had many stories, Wizwick and I. When he was a boy. But tell me more about his ventures on the surface and what drove you all to have such devotion to my nephew."
Unless anyone wants to like really roleplay this, Kieran would just kind of outline in Kieran fashion in a long-winded way, kind of the gist of our travels. Let Scarlet interject when she was with Wizwick and finding the core and everything. And then continue up to, and you know, Wizwick teleported us to Fortress of Driftmarch, where we entered the Underdark and quickly came face to face with the Illithids. It was there that he was taken from us and chose to remain in the embrace of Noldegrod.
And you see, Owick seems to, while you were telling the story, like, listened very intently. Like, there's been a few times where you've seen Wizwick truly appreciating the storytelling of someone else, and so he reminds you of that. But he seems to relax around you all a bit more. He says, "Amazing. Jedri was able to do so much more than I was. Such a short time."
He admired you. Talked about you all the time.
He definitely fell into some of the same traps that I did. I spent a few days in that spire, too. But this Noldo... Oh, never dreamed of meeting such an intelligence. But what concerns me is the other things you speak of. This Harbinger. Pallid King.
It's both grave threats to our material plane.
No doubt the Braxian cults have something to do with it as well.
You think they're in league?
Well, you described this Pallid King manipulating populations through faith. You've lost many sectors of Smoothhold to the Bat Cult. I don't like it. I would not be surprised if this Pallid King had something to do with it.
You think he may be subverting or corrupting those that pray to Abraxas?
Perhaps. This pallid mask. What experience do you have with it? Besides what you've already told me.
Well, Kieran says, looking to Scarlet, as we kind of mentioned, we know someone who donned the mask and overcame its corruption. Well, claims to have.
Beaten it.
Yes, thank you. And in my possession, I hold burnt mask, pallid. That's with the trap master Woodrow. At the moment.
You have such an artifact? Oh, I would love to get my eyes on that. I was going to flash back to the first time you guys had the mask, and Wizwick was like, I'm going to grab that immediately and identify it.
Kieran will relay this story to Owick. Your nephew thought the same thing. Luckily, didn't quite consume him the way that has others.
Well, such a threat is a threat to everyone. Surface and Underdark alike. You're not likely to get any kind of support from these folk here. They'd rather hide.
It's funny. The more I learn about you, deep gnomes, the more I realize how similar you are to Elysians. For the longest time, we hid behind our Sinvosi peaks, hoping to ignore the rest of the world, whereas we had magical might. You all have the ingenuity of your magics. But me and Wizwick, we are of the same cloth. Thought no more hiding. Time to go out in the world and see just what we can do. I had hoped bringing companion Strani, who I don't know if she joined us or where is that?
She's awkwardly eating like a sandwich down with Wizwick's family right now, and be like, I didn't know they left. I was in the bathroom.
I had hoped bringing our Dwargar companion, we might be able to elicit some assistance from your kin.
You have to understand. It takes a long time to convince a Zerf Neblin to do anything.
That's interesting given your relative short lifespan, but
You don't think I haven't said that before? Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one who gets it.
Can see why Wizwick liked you, Uncle Owick.
Yes. Jedri was different. But much like your Alicia, Twilight Vale, which I must say, it's a beautiful country.
Yes.
Did not spend long there. But see the corpse moon as honor. But much like your queen, Ella, we have our own discord. Smoothhold. I have feared for a very long time that the Abraxian cults have infiltrated the Council of Smoothhold. At the very least, garnered sympathies from some of the members. Not the Diamond Duke, but there are many who make up the leadership of Smoothhold. And I would fear a war would come to Smoothhold. Rather, we join with your allies. Dwergar, the Gloam Lord, Ettins, Surface. And I am just an old man. Crazy old man to most. What I can offer is knowledge and research.
They say knowledge is power. Anything you can give us, we would greatly appreciate.
If you could specialty is in lore, forgotten knowledge, lost in time, much like your artifacts. Dangerous, I could research them for you. Or any other things that you need. And unfortunately, and he kind of taps the staff again on the ground. Trapped by old age.
Do you happen to have a teleportation circle? Alright.
You're trying to get me in trouble. He taps the staff again.
I don't know about trouble, I was just... Your offer intrigues me, and as a patron of Wizwick's, I understand that you must have much knowledge. I've been hesitant to put it in the care of another, but do you think you would be able to research Pallid Mask?
You see,
in a safe way.
He seems to now kind of just like tap the staff every time before he speaks. He says, "Well, don't have a teleportation circle, but I can get around quite efficiently. I might be trapped by old age, but the weaves of magic can't contain old Oic. You must understand, old gnomes, we don't live very long. I'm only a spry 55 years old. The temptations of deep magics hold no sway over me. I know the life I've lived, it was beautiful. I know my end is soon. So, does your Neblin like to leave our little hollow better than this one? At least I do. So, evil mask from another plane of existence, with all sorts of corrupting powers and mystical energies. I can't wait.
Well, once the trap master allows us back our items, hopefully be able to give that to you for your research.
Yeah, I guess that seems fine. Do you think the trap master would be okay with that, Uncle Wizwick?
Well, I suppose we might need to be a bit sneaky about it.
That's one thing
I've
I
stolen
definitely
a
learned.
mask once. Can hand it off sneakily.
Wizwick also taught me how to be a little sneaky for now and again.
Well,
it
I
seems
think
to
that
me-
Fizri... Go ahead.
Oh, well, it seems to me that you guys have 2 days to get this done. If we're trying to go behind the person's back.
I think all it will require is for Fizri and I to give you a proper farewell when you leave.
Makes sense to me.
All right.
I can see why Jedri gravitated to you, Paul.
Yes, because it was the will of the mighty Iluva. Glad you see that, friend.
Iluvania. Curious deity. Still vestiges of her magic despite being dead. Very curious.
Indeed, and Kiran will pull out the moon's shard.
Oh.
I imagine it like levitates and glows a little in his hand.
Taps his staff as soon as he sees it. Oh. Yes. Other dead gods. There's very little evidence of any activity, other than their corpses. You've heard of the corpse of Bayret.
We, Kiran says, looking to Kaze, have seen the corpse of Barrett.
Oh, I never went into the Gosu Ruination.
Oh, let me tell you, it's a dangerous, frightening place, but full of interesting characters. Yes, we found the corpse of Barrett. Fought some of their children, their blood.
Right.
I've heard of stories of things growing out of the corpses of gods. I'm surprised there aren't more creatures in your Elysian Vale from that corpse moon.
Who knows? Queen Ayla may be keeping them at bay, or they may hide within the moon itself, waiting for a time to be.
Well, can't speak for an immortal being, given our short window into the world as Virfnebling. I don't usually trust things that can't die.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a change of heart, Kiran says, looking to Sarathil.
Oh.
Sorry. Say that again, Stefan.
At the mention of things that can't die, Kiran just says he's learned to live with that kind of necromancy.
Yes. I'm quite old, even older than I appear.
Oh, you look very old.
Way to
Look
show
at you. You're as bald as me. But I can see a wizard from a mile away. I can sense a wizard from a mile away. Did Wizwick ever tell you about the detect magic I taught him that can spread as far as a mile away?
He may have mentioned it.
I did have to remind him all the time, though, that you can't see things underground or through thick walls, and that it doesn't all as it appears.
Before my meeting with Wizwick, I did know of the detect magic spell prior, but He did teach me a few things that I never learned before. He was quite the wizard. Even for his interesting persona.
Well, if you have time, what was your name again? I only caught Kieran's name.
I am Sarathil. It is a pleasure to meet someone who Wizwick thought very highly of.
And you see he kind of like is like hobbling over to you, and then he kind of like takes his cane and kind of like pokes your spell book.
Oh, I got to keep that?
Oh shit, no, you wouldn't have your spell book. That's right.
You might have Wizwick's spellbook. I don't know where that thing went.
Wizwick's spellbook would still be on Wizwick. But I imagine if any of you wanted to have grabbed Wizwick's spellbook off his body, you could have. You'd say, there's a lot of secrets in Wizwick's spellbook that only if he was doing his tasks properly would be encoded, so you can't read them. If there were spells you wanted to learn, I wouldn't mind helping translate them.
I never considered that because I didn't want to. It seems an invasion of his privacy. But if you're willing.
Well, how about I teach you a few spells before you leave?
I'd appreciate that. I'd appreciate that greatly. What did you have in mind?
Cut to. So that's actually the question I'll have is how long of the 2-day time period, the 48 hours, do you want to stay? Do you guys want to be leaving the next morning or the morning after that or later in the day?
If he tells us like if he shows any value in staying, then maybe we do. I don't know. I'm not able to speak.
The only value in staying is more spells for Sarathil.
That might be value enough.
Yeah. Yeah, so like it's fairly late in the day, so like if you stay one more day, Sarathil will get 2 spells out of it.
Yeah.
If you leave tomorrow, he'll only get 1 spell out of it.
It's probably worth it then.
Okay.
I would say as long as I can keep on learning shit.
Halray would
Eventually, the rest
probably
of the
rush
party.
people out as quickly as possible, but he would also, if people wanted to stay, he'd stay. It's 2 days, and he wants to respect the dead, so.
Yeah, so I would say it's either Sarathil gets 1 spell or Sarathil gets 2 spells. Or Sarathil, I guess this is the way I'll put it. Do you want if they stay a long time, you can either get 2 high-level spells or 1 higher-level spell and 2 low-level spells from Owick.
Well, we could just decide right now as opposed to what we want to do. Because it is up to the group. Like, if people want to keep it.
Kieran gives us the 2, if Kieran would be like, well, we have another day here. I think it would be good to rest before we head out. Maybe see if we can diamond do council, suss out some Abraxas evil. Maybe do some good here while we're here.
We should also come up with a plan, Kieran, for going into Elysia.
Yes, well, once I know where exactly we're coming out, contact my friend and see if he can't get more information. I haven't decided yet whether we should go to the seat of civil government. The current reigning sovereign, whose name is the current reigning sovereign, Elway and Norasil. Elway and Norasil is a bit of a, I think Cal used to use this phrase, a bootlicker?
That sounds like the medication I use for my lower back.
How many days did it take us to get here again after
10.
we left? It was 10 days.
Mhm.
Okay, never mind then. From after we met with the Gloamlord?
Yeah, it was 10 days.
Oh,
Get up
okay.
here. So I'll put it this way. Are you going to leave tomorrow or the day after?
Day after.
Day
Yeah.
after, okay. All right, so Sarathil, in that case, Wizwick is going to teach you a few spells.
Damn, man, I shouldn't have saved all that gold, just burning all that higher level spells before. Could have just learned them here.
Now you get
Um,
more.
The more the merrier, yeah.
I know, exactly. I mean, that is a good thing. Just
So do you want 2 high-level spells or 1 high-level spell and 2 lower-level spells?
when you say high level, lower, oh, you already have.
I
something.
mean like 6 through 8 is the range of the higher level ones. I know that you can't cast 8th level spells yet, I think.
Oh, but I can.
But you would have it in your book for once you turn level 14. The next level you'll get 8th level.
Let me look at my slots real quick because I feel like I'm stacking a little too high. So I'm gonna go with 1 high, 2 lowers.
Okay.
I want to be able to cast these things.
So high level spell, you have a choice. And you could write these down and pick later if you want time to think about it. But there's a choice of the spell Simulacrum, the spell Project Image, the spell Regenerate, and the spell Flesh to Stone. Those are the 4 spells. You could choose one of those 4.
It's simulacrum.
Simulacrum, Project Image, Regenerate,
Right.
and Flesh to Stone. Pick one of those 4.
Okay.
What are you gonna pick? Go.
Well, I'm gonna read through all of them first.
Of the lower level spells, you can pick 2 out of these. Major Image, Arcanist's Magic Aura, Greater Invisibility,
1 minute.
Fly, Fabricate, or Confusion.
Huh?
So
It's
one
actually-
of those
it's
higher
actually
levels
not-
or 2 of those?
It's not fly. It's become fly.
Yeah, of
Flesh to
course.
Fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7th level spell.
Okay.
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 All right. So in the rest of your time here, though, is there anything specific you want to do, or are you just kind of waiting out the time? Do you want to try talking to people? How much do you want to try to get done? We really will only have 1 day to do it.
Huron would probably try to suss out any Abraxas magic and kind of like keep an eye out for any like Pallid King corruptions. Obviously, he can't travel far. He won't have access to a lot of it, but whatever little he can kind of glean from this area, I'd maybe even bring up to Fizri. Be like, is there any chance that I could, meet with one of these counts?
Sure. Give me an investigation roll.
No longer. So I was not. Oh, 18.
And kind of like generally speaking, as far as Wizwick's village's immediate vicinity, there's not a lot of what you can overtly see as like suspicious behavior. If you were to ask anyone about the Bat Cult, a lot of the folks in this immediate area would kind of be like, "Oh, don't get me started on the Bat Cult," or would be like, "I heard so and so's nephew, his cousin, twice removed, is in the Bat Cult."
I believe Vanya.
You'd hear people like, you'd also hear some conspiracy theory-esque stuff. People would
Kidnap
be like,
your children and your mushrooms. Your children and your mushrooms.
But not your children mushrooms.
You'd hear some older woman be like, "I wish they'd kidnap my grandkids."
That seems a little harsh, man. I don't know if you really mean
You've
that.
never met them. Absolute menaces. Stomp all over the mushrooms.
Oh, an enslavement to an evil cult. Is better
Kids
than
these
that?
days, they don't appreciate fine jewelry.
And what does fine jewelry have to do with any of this?
Everything.
I'm sorry. Fine.
I heard that Whitley Glimmer Wold Wert Edry Felbright Quartz Carrier is pro-Bat Cult.
And who is that?
Oh, he's the Chandler.
Chandler? Like, from Friends?
No. He's in charge of small claims disputes amongst the villages.
He's a more famous actor.
You wouldn't think someone who's so about family values would be a part of the Bat Cult. I heard. But it's hard to really get much without like doing a more like invasive investigation.
Yeah. But does it sound like it's like deeply ingrained, or is it like hearsay? Like, oh well,
It sounds more like hearsay.
gotcha.
But at the same time, though, like some of the stuff you've seen before in other corrupted villages also sounded like hearsay.
Right. Well, as long as there's no outwards mass murders, at least they haven't gotten to that point yet. Huron says, as I imagine we're all back together at some point. But
Yeah.
the Abraxas cult is slowly worming its way into the halls of Smooth.
I guess the only other thing you would get is that it seems like most of the like confirmable stuff or like tangible stuff is not happening within the village itself. Is happening out in like the mines and in the outer rims of the area. You'd almost surmise that whoever is like in charge of the Bat Cult probably knows probably a little bit more savvy than like a wild murderer in another town where they're being a bit more strategic, almost a bit more like your experience in the Beastlands with the infiltration of the cults there, where they're not exactly they haven't reached the level of murder in the streets, but they have reached the level of like slow, calculated infiltration.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you would all, I imagine, be gathered back together the next day. Sarathil has probably not moved from the Oix tower. Though at the same time, you all are staying in Oix Tower, so it's easy enough to gather in that main hall where Noldo has been working with Oic and Sarathil on the spells. But you have your last evening here to do any prep you want to do for heading. I'd say Fizri and Strani would visit. And Fizri would go to you, Curon, to say, we've gotten approval from Woodrow, the trap master, to scorch you to the surface tomorrow. There's several ways you can go. There's the main ditch town out there, but I guess. And she kind of like looks awkwardly at you and like, What are you doing in Elysia?
Well,
We're looking for a dragon. He's about this yay big. Kind of looks like this. And I summon my Mundi. Just his head like comes out of the ethereal.
It just pops out and he's like licking his eye and he's like he's excited to be here.
And then I close him again and he goes away.
I don't mean to be rude. It's just you're a bit clandestine in nature somewhat. So are you trying to sneak in or are you returning triumphantly?
I think the less people who know we're there, Kieran says, looking kind of towards Kaze, like being like, this is what we want, right? The better.
Oh, you don't want to go to the ditch town then?
What's happening in the ditch town?
Well, in the last 6 months or so, the Elysians have been a little less kind to our traders there. There's always guards. The sigil of the queen. If you're trying to sneak in and avoid authorities, it's dead certain you'll get caught there.
I'm
Unless
sorry,
you're
wait.
real good.
You say the Elysians are being unkind to your traders. In what way?
It's less free. It's less free movement. Don't want to see everything before we bring it out. They're checking our caravans. They're not letting us leave the ditch town into the proper vale. It's almost as if they're looking for something.
I see. I assume they're looking for us.
There's other ways up. Lead out into the wilds. They patrol those woods too, but they have less control and less range there.
Yes, the wilds then is where we should head.
Huron, is there anything of importance in the ditch town that you need there? So I can be stealthy if you need something there.
I don't think so. Simply a convenient way to enter Elysia. But we need to keep our heads down. I'm sure once we arrive wherever we are in Talray,
Talio?
Thank you. Talio, my friend.
Your best
my
friend.
friend. Whose name I would never forget.
Tell me.
But
We can definitely deposit you out in the Ludome hinterlands.
I don't know the hinterlands that well, but I'm sure with Talray's help and Talio's, find it. Where exactly, Kieran says, turning towards Talray, did you say Glowman had gone?
Can't help. Some forests. kind of south. Like near
The Illudome Highlands, hinterlands.
the
would be-
Illidome hinterlands.
Ah, what Fizri just said. Yes, so the hinterlands it is. I think it's best if we get whatever assistance we can from this god. Head into Elysia proper.
There are pathways that lead into the Mordnari Hollow, but it's a lot more dangerous.
Well, I don't wish to put you at any harm.
What kind of danger are we talking?
Hugging lanterns, grown yellow drakes. Not to mention just the toxins that spew from the veins of old magic.
But no mind stuff, right? There ain't no tentacles going on, cause if there ain't no tentacles, then there's no problem. That's what I say.
I mean, I can't guarantee there's no tentacles. Not a lot of us go that way. The land's kind of poisoned.
Is there, precautions we can maybe take to, counteract the poison pots?
The precautions are to go to the Illudome Highlands instead. Hinterlands.
Well, I like that idea.
Wait.
I mean,
You could go to the Mordnari Hollow, but it's just more dangerous. I don't know where you're trying to go up there.
Wait, I'm sorry, real quick. Glowman is in the hinterland.
As far as Talray knows.
Presumably.
Right. And why are we talking about the hollow?
She's just offering another option to get there. She's just giving you all the options of where you can come to the surface.
Gotcha. I think it's best if we just head straight to the hinterlands. I mean, my Annals of Elysia are a little blank on that section. I'm sure the gods will see fit to enlighten me within the next week, hopefully.
Hey, it at least says the Gloom Wilds is another name for it.
That's true.
Hey man, some of the edges of the map are blank.
You know what? It's best when they're blank because then they can be anything when we arrive.
Whisper Worms, that's what they're called. Sorry.
Whisper.
Or Cloaked Lanterns. Okay, sorry. I'm remembering my own fucking zoology of Aradun.
The basalt plains of the Mordnari Hollow.
I'm a big fan of the Mordnari.
I'm a big fan of all of it.
All right, well, I already talked to Uncle Owick, and I know that we're going to be doing a little clandestine behavior tomorrow.
What? I don't know what you're talking about.
It's probably best you pretend that way.
So, Kieran, you will not be handing it off.
I think that's smart.
All right, well, thank you for everything you've done for Bilgru. I know that it might not be easy to get back in, but you're always welcome in the Netherrock home.
We appreciate it.
And I thank you for your teachings.
And your hospitality.
Well, I'll miss you all. Don't worry, I know how to get in touch with you.
Good.
Depending on what spell Sarathil picked, he might be able to get in touch with me.
Well, I can always cast Sending and touch base. But give you warning then, but...
Oh, call anytime. I'm all alone in here.
Fizri, Kieran says, kind of like tapping her a little. You should visit your uncle more often. Keep him notified.
I'm not as interested in the books as Bilgru was.
Well, then maybe train one of the younger ones. At least to smile and nod. We old folk like that.
All right.
They say the mind dulls when not challenged. And let me tell you, the mind of young ones, challenging indeed.
Well, Grimwick does like illusion magic. All right, well, I'll come back to collect you tomorrow.
So, how we doing this handoff thing? Oh, do we have to bake the mask into a cake or something?
You don't need to worry about it.
How inventive.
No. Simpler means.
All right. Well, it looks like we got our plan.
I'll just do it the same way that you got those sending stones in with Wizwick. As he winks to you all.
I genuinely have no idea what you're talking.
You didn't see it.
Actually, he wouldn't have because he rolled like a
would not.
39.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Kaze, what is he talking about? Says tapping Kaze.
As you see, Kaze's avatar just stands there like this. His player's AFK. actually, he's just running into the wall right now.
Kaze, I've told you to stop doing that.
All right, so at this point, it really is kind of like any plans you want to make for going to the surface.
Are there any shops in this area?
I imagine there would be shops. Yeah. I mean, they send a lot of their shops to, as far as like the kind of like stuff that they think outsiders would be interested in, they send to the ditch towns. But there are the things that they value in the shops here. So you would see, several fishmongers and myconologist booths. And there's a lot of jewelers and stonecutters, and crafters who are crafting things out of blind lizard leathers and crafting armor or crafting the different materials needed for mining. There are some smiths and forges as well that are crafting the different mining material. So there's a lot of like what would be useful to these villages here. It all pertains to Svirfneblin needs, like illusory magic reagents, digging materials, but also like artisan crafts of different sculptures, jewelry, and other things to make a home more welcoming. There's mosaic artists. There's a lot of different shops. Is there something that Talray's looking for particular?
I think you'd just be looking around aimlessly. Maybe you'd find like a mushroom that kind of like, if you tap the cap of the mushroom, it jiggles like a hula girl, like in a truck.
Oh, easily.
And he thinks that's funny, so he snags a few of those.
Oh yeah, the myconologists, they don't just do like agricultural mushrooms, they also do novelty mushrooms, we'll say, because they're so good at you might even spy like a few like randomly, like because there's a few druids of the spore here that can really get into the mushrooms. Like I'd say you buy this hula mushroom from like a really sketchy Svirfneblin who has like mushrooms growing like off of the side of his head, and he's just like got one eye that's much bigger than the other eye that's like basically closed, and he's definitely probably just eaten too many psychedelic mushrooms at this point that he can no longer do the work of a myconologist. He can only make novelty myconology items.
The mushroom on his head is supposed to grow when it gets wet. So it's like a, what do you call it? A built-in umbrella hat?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it comes off the side and then curves up and it just... But yeah, you can easily... I'll say you definitely can get one or a few different magic mushrooms that when you tap them on the head, they start to dance like Baby Groot.
Sweet. That's exactly what I was thinking. Is there like a graveyard or anything like that? Like, is there gonna be like a funeral where Wizwick's gonna be buried? Or we didn't really talk about what they do,
what that would look like. Yeah. Feel free to interject with what you think would be right, but I would imagine that there is a particular mushroom forest that they bury their dead in. That's kind of their bodies feed into the magic mushrooms of this space that are particularly majestic, luminous, and it's almost as if like one grows over each like a headstone to create this beautiful forest.
Yeah, maybe like, I don't know, that sounds pretty good. Like perhaps like it's one large forest, but they still have like memorials for people, because the mushrooms can't stay pretty forever. there are people who tend to the forest, stuff like that, but like, the strictly like, for beauty's sake, and like nobody's allowed to like harvest any of them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Wizwick might have a memorial, but most of them are like, embedded with like a lot of gems and stuff like that, whatever their favorites were.
Yeah. So what I'll say is, and I'll say maybe this is kind of like the final moment, and you can all say whatever you want here, or describe how your character is during this. But on your last day there, you would attend the basically the funeral of Wizwick. And basically, you would find that you would enter into this mushroom forest with the family. And you see there's you would notice like these where would be the grave plots are these circles of mushrooms that grow around it. You've ever seen a fairy circle? Basically, wherever there's a grave plot, there's a fairy circle. Circle of mushrooms that grow in a perfect circle, where the body of Azir Nebin lays, with a memorial above it that are as varied as the mushrooms here. Some that are simple headstones, others that are statues of the deceased, all with some manner of gem inlaid into it. Both gems that were there originally and gems that have been added there. Almost like the gems are like flowers we would put on graves on the surface. In these massive mushrooms raise above in this cavern, so large that they must be dozens of years old. And within the gills of the mushroom, beneath the head, there are these spores that come down that light up in various warm colors, lighting this whole area in pinks, oranges, violets, indigos, and giving a general warm feeling in the air as you're moving through. It's not a cloud of spores that feels overwhelming. It is peaceful here. The air is still. You hear your footfalls with each step through. Before you would find where Wizwick will be laid to rest. And you would see a headstone that says, according to Clayton, here lies Wizwick, BFYJP, Netherwork, a grand mage who could not be caged. And above, on top of the headstone, is a modest portrayal of Wizwick, made in a mosaic of his favorite gems. Not a little statue, but the headstone comes up and there's a circle within there's a mosaic depiction of Wizwick. And the family all gathers around, as you do as well, as a stone tomb and laid into the ground, buried. As each member of the family steps up to the stone to give their goodbyes, you would have an opportunity as well.
Kieran will look around and see that no one's gone up. Will approach and kneel in front of the tomb of Wizwick. He may have been the smallest of us, but he cast the largest shadow. The weight he carried in the world shook mountains, fell. The light, the joy he sparked, the creativity within him. The world is a darker place without his presence here. But I know he lives on in the spirit of Gra, spirit of friends and family. Blessed in light are you, cloaked in twilight. Forever, a champion of Ilivan. Duran will kind of, if you'll allow me, for brevity's sake, because the spell does technically take an hour and 10 minutes to cast, he will upcast the ceremony spell, and this is more for flavor than anything.
Go for it.
He will take out the moonstone, levitates in front of Tira as Hellwood Hama starts to grow around Wizwick's tomb. Not fully, just a small portion of it to show the magic of Ilivania that watched over him. And then Kiran would take out from his money sack 2,588 gold pieces worth of gemstones that we acquired from the Gloom Lord, and first offer it to the family, saying, I know that there's no cost for the friendship Wizwick gave to us, and I know no amount of money or stone fill the void that now lives in your hearts, but I would offer you something, only to say thank you for teaching Wizwick everything he knew, making him the Sniff-Neblin that we all knew. Accept it. On his tomb, it shall always be, until he needs it. You know, some paper and
You would see Jacob looks at you very stolid for a long moment before kind of giving you a very stoic nod as Breezy, Wizwick's mother, takes the gems from you, and she gives you a hug as you do this, and then she looks to Jacob once and then looks to her brother, Uncle Oak. She hands the gems to Uncle Oak, who then steps up to the grave, and you see he almost does what you do, Kieran. He walks and he puts the cane down and then keeps walking, and the cane keeps standing. He struggles at first, but he makes it over there, and he takes the gems and he lays them out, and you can see some lights of magic similar to Wizwick's. And then suddenly you would see beneath the memorial, beneath the name, the epitaph, and the other gems, there are these gems are now fused into the stone, and you can see there are 5 prominently there beneath the name. A diamond in the middle, representing Kieran, an emerald representing Timber, a ruby representing Scarlet. Doesn't care about Sarathil, you can tell, right?
It's fair.
There are
Amethyst for Robert.
an amethyst for Robert, and a sapphire for Cal, we'll say. But your offering is accepted by the family and is memorialized in Wizwick's tomb as some traditional Sniff-Neblin music plays. Clayton, what does that sound like?
Oh God.
Hey, I'm imagining bagpipes made out.
I was too. But they're like made out of like inflated bat livers or something.
Yeah.
Oh god.
But Clayton, would it be bagpipes or do you
Yeah,
have
why
something
not?
else in mind?
It's fine. It's a Scottish funeral.
I have something I'd like to
Sure.
offer as well. It's not much, but I'll go up to his grave and I'll kneel down in front of it and take out I'm gonna say I had some pressed cinder lilies that I took from Cindermire when we were together. I'll hold them in one hand and I'll produce a small flame in my other hand and rest them both on my knees and look at his grave for a little bit and then say, Wizwick, the world was not ready to lose you. Oh, your curious mind. I'll never forget the kindness that you showed me, or the wake-up calls, or the fire that you gave me. Thank you for remembering my birthday. And thank you for all the stories that you told and the knowledge that you shared so willingly. Come back to us soon. And I'll put the cinder lilies down and stand up, just holding the flame and step back. You're muted.
As you do that, you would see the cinder lilies laying there, and cinder lilies have a elemental nature to them. You would watch as the flame you hold sort of turns bronze colored for a moment, and then the cinder lilies themselves kind of burst into their own flame, burn away, and you can see a etching of them in the stone. It's created the aura of soul. Immortalized. Much as you stay there and the music plays slowly, the families scatter away and depart the graveyard. You're left alone with the tomb of Wizwick. As I think that's where we'll end tonight. Thank you, folks, for sticking around with us through this. And hopefully you'll come back next week as our heroes depart their dear friend to continue the quest to Elysia. Join us, though, for other programming throughout the week. We have another play in Paradise tomorrow night with Alex and Mike. You're still playing Gloomhaven, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, we are.
Okay.
I don't even think we're halfway.
I was
done,
gonna
but-
ask how it's probably for the foreseeable future that you'll be playing that for a while.
Just so much content, so
I imagine so. Like it's so much. There's Gloomhaven playing that. This Thursday night there will not be Relaxing in Paradise because I'm doing a bi-weekly schedule this spring just because of the classes I have to take. Although we'll see how I feel. I might jump on. And Friday night is going to be the first of a 3-part Arden Quest series on Roll for Damage, where I'll be the guide for a game of Quest. Shannon will be playing in that. Sort of a precursor to a show that will eventually probably come to Paradise in the long term. Sunday night will be the Shauna Jenna Power Hour, most powerful hour on the internet, where we'll recap tonight's episode, speculate about the next episode, and then we will be back here on Monday, continue the adventure in Paradise as we leave one player's hometown to go to another player's home. Or maybe you guys will just turn around completely. Just teleport off to a nice sunny place to have a vacation before the world ends. I think that sounds nice. All right,
nice
friends.
filler arc, you know.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just spend like 3 episodes with just the wayward vacation.
Peach episode.
Woo! Slow-mo shots of playing volleyball.
Yeah, we're gonna get art from Eddie of every character in their beach attire,
my
their
God.
vacation attire. Kieran's got like the suntan lotion on his nose, and the really
Dead or Alive logo in there.
the really high bathing suit.
Who still needs some sunscreen?
You really better put some sunscreen on. All right, folks, we're going to rate our friends over at Friends Who Roll Dice. So go and give them our love from Paradise. And we will see you all very soon. Say goodnight, everybody. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Bye.